This is the Reaper of Souls, and here is a video of him.
The demons of the underworld have mercy on your soul.
That video was when he was brand new in 2009, and here is mine. Absolutely dry rotted. So instead of repairing it, I'm just gonna make a new mask.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Apache Halloween. This video is going to be an overview of perhaps one of the most intense tasks that I've ever done when it comes to Halloween, and that was making my first ever Halloween mask. But it wasn't just any normal mask, it was actually supposed to be a replica of this guy right here. Some might say, why would I do this to myself in trying to make a one-for-one copy? Well, that's because this was the original head that was on this guy for the past 14, 15 almost years now. This is it right here, and this is a 2009 model of the Reaper of Souls, and it is absolutely dry rotted. Very bad, to the point where the mouth can barely move under its own power, and it's actually hard for me to just do this. So I was not really happy with the outcome. I did make a repair video on this about a year ago, and those repairs did hold up over the year. But the problem is that since this is dry rotting, you fix one repair, another break comes up, and it's just a never-ending battle. So right now a new crack has formed right here in the under the cheekbone area. There's a big crack showing forth, and it's really a bad one. It stretches from like down here all the way back. So at this point, this was after Halloween 2023, and I was very tired of it. I wanted to get a nice working mask, but these things are so hard to find. So I thought the best option was to just make one. And that's exactly what I did. I first started carving a new clay sculpt. Basically everything that I did and followed was through distortions and the Making Monster YouTube videos. So I'm really thankful that that is actually a thing, because I don't know if I'd really be able to make my own mask just by reading forums or whatever. Those videos really helped, and if you guys want to do something similar to this, I would highly recommend watching those videos. They give you a good step-by-step process of how to make a mask. From the beginning of sculpting one all the way to painting and doing the finishing touches. It's really a good course of a couple of videos there. So like I said, started off with the clay, used wet clay, which is like a water-based clay to my understanding, but has a very long life. It's really soft and is easily able to be formed with just tools and stuff. Also want to get yourself a simple pair of tools from like Amazon. Very generic tools. I didn't use anything special. Most of it was actually with like a wood tool and just some carving tools to get major forms right. One important tool that I do highly recommend if you were to make a replica of something is this tool right here. This is, I don't know what the exact name is. This is from Harbor Freight, and it is a tool that you like press into an object. So like my hand here, I want to form my hand. There's like the back of my hand mold right there. So that's like a one-to-one pattern of whatever you're trying to replicate. So that's what I was doing to try and get the proportions right on all of these. Like the cheekbones were a big thing, and definitely like just the overall head portion. After the clay sculpture was all done, I double checked everything, make sure there was no imperfections that I didn't want to have in the final product. And then I did exactly what Ed Edmonds does, and that is get the Krylon brown, I think it's like leather brown spray paint. The exact one, I don't know why they use that color. I don't know if I can use a different gloss color, but I didn't want to take any chances, so that's what I went with. Sprayed the whole mold with that brown paint. It's supposed to help you pull off the clay once the plaster's cured, and I would say it actually did do a pretty good job of that. The next part you're going to want to do is want to make a clay wall when it comes to two-part molds, because you will not be able to clean out all the clay for something like this if the mold is just one part and you can't break it apart. Just imagine yourself trying to like carve into like a little area, like you have to fish your hand through and then clean out something you can't even see. It's really not going to happen, especially if you can't really see anything, right? So you got to make the two-part mold, and to make the two-part mold, you need to make a clay wall. The next thing I did after that, which was the most anxiety-induced part, was actually plastering over my sculpt. And the reason why that is so scary is because once that plaster goes on there and it dries, whatever is under that plaster is what the mold's going to be. And if you mess up with something simple like don't give yourself enough time to actually like paint everywhere, it might dry early and you might have imperfections that you don't want. So you should look out for that and make sure you're working within the time limits. And also because the clay sculpt that you just spent months working on is now encased in plaster, and you don't know what it's going to turn out to be. And basically that clay sculpture gets destroyed because you have to rip out all those parts of clay in order to get the like anti-mold portion, the actual plaster mold portion, and get that ready for latex pouring. So it's just kind of scary, especially for a first time. It was very intimidating. Now, once the plaster mold is fully cured, you're going to be able to break them apart. And that was actually one of the harder parts for me, and that was because mine didn't really want to break apart the easiest at the beginning. It was actually getting a little frustrating and a little worrisome because I was worried that the two molds actually came together and like fused together. But once the mold was broken into the two parts, I let that sit for about 2 days, I think, 3 days, waiting for the latex to arrive. And once the latex did arrive, we come to find out that 1 gallon of latex is not enough to fill the pour for the Reaper of Souls. The practice I was using when trying to make a latex mold was pouring a full layer of latex into the mold. It requires a lot of latex. And it's not that you're going to use it all, but you just want to fill it up like a bucket, because my understanding is that the outer layer where the mask is going to be is going to dry faster than the inner layer, and it has, I think, something to do with that the plaster is porous and like sucks the moisture out of the latex. So you get an outer layer, and the longer you let it sit, the thicker the latex is going to be. It seems to be like the easiest way and less effort, but you're going to need to have a lot of latex in order to fill up the mold. And I found out that the Reaper of Souls head takes about 2 gallons of latex, which is a lot, to fill it up all the way. Now, once that time period is up, depending on however thick you want it to be, like an hour or 40 minutes to an hour basically, you can pour out the latex that's still in the liquid state and save it for another pull. So it's not like you can't use it again. And once that's done, you let it sit overnight, and you'll be able to have a new latex mask in the morning. And this right here was the actual first successful pull of a mask. And what we did here that we shouldn't have done is we pulled it out of the mold before filling it with foam. And because of that, there were some deformities when it came to filling the foam into it, because you want it to have some rigidity and structure, because if you don't, the latex is not going to be able to form itself. So what we ended up doing with this one is kind of just placing it back in the mold and then filling it with foam. But it wasn't totally successful because of the fact that, one, we didn't fill the foam all at once because we didn't really know how much foam this head would need to be totally filled. And two, some places have some little deformities because of the fact that it wasn't left in the mold. It was taken out and then put back in, so there might be some areas where the latex doesn't fully seat nicely into the plaster mold again. But overall, for a first pull, it's actually pretty nice. It could be used as a display, but I would not use it on the Reaper head itself because of the fact that the foam is so thick that it makes it very hard for the mouth to move. This pull actually sat in the mold for about an hour and a half, so it's a pretty thick layer of latex here. And then along with the foam was not, it's not basically weak enough for it to be able to move under its own power. If this were to be put on the head right now, it'd probably move like that much. Nothing better than the dry rotted head. So this one was kind of a bust, but it was a good experiment to know certain aspects of what to change. So we went with a shorter amount of time leaving it in the mold and actually a more rigid foam. I have currently only made 3 successful pulls on my mold, And this one right here is the second one. And this one is going to be probably the one that I personally use, and I'm actually very happy with it. This one was left in the mold for about 45 minutes, which is a substantially less time than the hour and a half. Also, the foam fill is different from the first one. We did not fully foam fill it because, one, we did not want to waste foam and have to cut it out. We made an inner mold to insert into the head while the foam was filling up, and it's made out of PVC and some wood. This is the tool that was inserted into the mold, and this saves up foam. So this is inserted and saves a lot of empty space, which is good. It's not as large as the original, whatever they used at the factory back in the day. I still don't really understand how they were able to accomplish that, whether it was with a hot knife and they just cut out all the foam they didn't want. I'm not sure. It really baffles me. If anyone knows, let me know. Now, I actually wasn't initially happy with this one, so I decided to make a third pull, which is this head, and I have not even yet painted. Something that I found when working on this is that if you were to paint it, depending on the thickness of the paint that you put on, it might be difficult for the mouth to actually move. This one moves effortlessly. The mouthpiece has no problem moving this. This one was only left in for a half hour. It's the thinnest pull that we've made yet. Now, the reason that we did that was for the effortless mouth movement, but the problem that we found with this one is that, one, the foam that we do, the practice that we have, the foam only comes up to right here. This head isn't strong enough to really hold its shape for little portions, even if it's not under stress. So there'll be little concavities in here, which was kind of annoying to me. It might not be annoying to many people, but me, the perfectionist I am, it was really bothersome. So I went back to this head and made some adjustments, and this one actually works very well, even with the thickened paint. And I will go on to tell you exactly what I did to get that to work. But yeah, so currently this head is still maybe a demonstration piece or maybe a test piece, again, to work on that. I don't really know. I'm pretty happy with this one. So I don't really know what the future of this one is, to be honest. It still even has the seam line on it that I still need to cut away. But overall, it's a pretty solid piece. Again, foam filled. And as you can see, you can kind of see the inner part where that insert would go in. Once the pull is pulled, you can paint it. And the paint that I use is just like the paint that they use at Distortions, which is the 1/3 latex paint, 1/3 latex, the mask making latex, and then 1/3 water. The paint was actually mixed at Home Depot. I brought the Reaper of Souls to Home Depot, asked the guy, hey, can you mix paint for this? And he was like, sure. So we found a color that's actually very close. As you can see, the color matching is not that bad. Don't pay attention to these hands. These hands are, one, dry rotted and are going to get replaced eventually. And this is a custom paint job that I did, which isn't the best. It's close, but not super close. But the thing that I was going off here was actually the chest. The chest and the face is very similar in pattern and coloring. But once again, when it comes to painting for flexibility purposes, I never did this, but I would recommend to put a thin coat of paint on it for the base color so that the latex still has mass flexibility. Or if you do put a thicker coat on it, something that I found actually helps is this right here. You want to find where the head creases when you close the mouth. So the crease on this one is actually kind of right here. And you're going to want to take that and kind of just fold it. You want to kind of basically, I'm thinking put a fold in the paint so that the paint actually has a weak spot there. And it might come off in the future, but it's going to make the mouth move a lot easier. So then it just helps with the predetermined crease of when the mouth closes. So this one's not really a great example because of how thick the foam is and stuff, but that's exactly what I did to this one to get the mouth to really close up all the way. The next issue that I had was stabilizing the head. The bobbing was destroying me, and I really didn't like it. I thought it looked goofy because I don't really know many people who talk like this. So what I decided to do was something that they never did, but newer models do have, one thing that comes to mind is the tire swing zombie. There's a metal rod that is attached to the plastic base in the head. That rod shoots up and is covered by a pool noodle, basically. It's a round, circular, cylindrical piece of foam. And that adds stability to the head because it's basically like a little metal internal structure. And the tighter the clearances are, the less movement the head is going to have. And that's exactly what I did in this one. I made a metal rod out of some solid core, heavy gauge wire that's basically able to hold its shape, but you are still able to bend it, move it wherever you need. So I took advantage of some of the screw holes that are actually on this guy, and I bent the wire to fit around it, used some simple stainless steel screws with big washer heads on it so that it would fix the wire into place. And then I shoved the pool noodle over, and just for extra support added a piece of PVC tubing. And that really made a tight fit, and this thing has very minimal play so that all the energy of movement is going into the mouth right here. And that's exactly what you really want. This is what I've done for now. I don't know if there's a better way to do this. I'm actually interested in knowing how the factory was able to get the mouthpiece to move with such low effort. I don't know if it was the paint they used, if their latex was super thin, and I really want to know how the heck they were able to get that foam to only be like a quarter of an inch around the whole head. That just is amazing to me. But this is the way I've done it, and it's probably going to have to be different for each and every head that is made. It just depends on so many factors. It's really hard for me to be able to pinpoint exactly what the problem is for each head. So it's a lot of trial and error. But the main key points that I think are the most important when deciding it is making sure the head is super stable. Just making like a wire frame and packing, just it could be pillow stuffing, but you just want to make sure that the head is not able to really have much movement in it. You want something supporting it because the foam needs to be there, one, to keep the like facial features correct, but it's not really strong enough to really stabilize the head. So that's something that I'm still working on. That's one of the gray areas, and I haven't yet come up with a proper solution at the time of filming the video. But hopefully I'm able to iron out those problems in the future, and we'll see what happens from there on. So now let's see this brand new Reaper of Souls head. So let's activate him right now. He's got his LEDs in him, and it basically is all glued down, one secured unit. So let's see how he works.
May the demons of the underworld have mercy on your soul.
So as you can see, the mouth movement is pretty mobile. It's actually a lot better than what it originally was. So that is all the trial and error. I guess you could say R&D, research and development, which is kind of funny to me. I just think that's funny. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that head mouth movement is working. And I'm going to try my best to be able to get other molds to be similar to that. But again, I think every mold is different, and it might be difficult for some, it might be easy for others. I think the overall general thing that I'm trying to go for is 40 minutes in the mold and a thin layer of paint. I think that's the main goal.
Mortal, behold your destiny and despair.
And I'm not too worried about the resistance on the plastic piece. And you also might be wondering why the upper jaw movement. Well, one thing that is potentially something I thought about is if you had the lower jaw movement, it might want to rest in this position, right? And there might be creases that might start to form in areas that you don't want them to form because of the fact that when it's not activated, it's sitting like upwards. So my thought is we have 3D printers now. We can get replacement mouthpieces, and it's not that hard to get into the head to replace it. So I went back to the original upper jaw movement, and I think the resistance is not that bad, and that if it does break eventually, you can go out and buy a new one. So it is not the end of the world. Let's try him one more time here, his third saying.
If you think the dead rest in peace, think again.
But you can see the paint color here is very similar, very close to the original paint. This is all original paint in there. This is the new stuff. So there is basically the Reaper of Souls. I'm very happy with the new head. Very happy with how the color turned out. Basically very overall happy with it. My next goal for this guy is to actually replace these hands with some newly molded ones. I'm going to try my best to keep the proportions all correct, and hopefully I'll be able to successfully do that. That's a whole nother challenge in and of itself. Similar in terms of like how the process is made, but it's a little more difficult in terms of making the actual mold from my understanding. But I think the hands are small enough and manageable enough to be able to successfully do that. I think I'm going to take a break though for a little bit before I actually start working on that. So that might be a whole nother video in and of itself in the future. But overall, I am very happy right now. I was able to get back the nice mouth movement of the original Reaper of Souls back in 2009. And I hope you guys enjoyed the process that I showed you here, and maybe gives you some inspiration on making your own mold for an animatronic that needs restoration. I'm actually in the idea of making new ones such as the bite-sized clown. Mine is really bad there, and I really want to make a new face for him. But dry rot is a never-ending battle with these things, so making just a brand new head and a brand new mold is just so nice, because you think about it, the mold will last for a very long time depending how you treat it and how much you use it. So if this thing dry rots in 15 years from now, guess what? I'll be able to make another one. So it's not the end of the world now. It's never going to end. I'm probably going to keep the mold forever and not have to worry about it. So just some of my thoughts in the process that I took with this. I'm very happy again with how it turned out. And I'm going to leave you all with a nighttime demo of the new head under some nice lighting and stuff, because that's just what we do here. So I want to say thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. It will help me out a lot, and I really appreciate it. I'm really happy I was able to show you guys the process I took and the end result, because I'm very happy with it. So here comes the nighttime demo. So I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Foolish mortal, behold your destiny and despair. If you think the dead rest in peace, think again. May the demons of the underworld have mercy on your soul.